Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through compelling sources to bring you the most potent, actionable insights. Today, we're really getting into the science behind tiny improvements, drawing a lot from the work on atomic habits. Now, an atomic habit, it's defined as, an incredibly small unit. But, and this is key, it's also a source of immense energy, real power.
That's a great way to put it. And our mission today is, well, to move past just talking about willpower. We want to understand the mechanics of these tiny changes. Why does improving by just 1% each day compound into something? Well, huge. We're aiming to give you a really practical four-step system for building good habits and, just as importantly, ditching bad ones.
Right. And to really see what this looks like in action, we have to start with this idea of the aggregation of marginal gains. It's this philosophy that completely turned around British cycling. I mean, before 2003, they were kind of a joke, really.
I was putting it mildly. They'd managed just one Olympic gold medal since 1908 and 0 Tour de France wins in 110 years.
Yeah.
For a major cycling nation, that's, failure.
Definitely needed a shakeup. And they got it with Dave Brailsford, the new performance director. He brought in this, pretty radical idea, the aggregation of marginal gains.
Right. The thinking was, if you could just improve every single tiny thing involved in riding a bike by just 1%, those tiny gains would multiply. They'd compound into a massive overall improvement.
Okay, but when I first heard about this, my first thought was, where's the line? I mean, 1% improvement on everything. Finding the perfect pillow and mattress for each rider, doesn't that get a bit obsessive?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But they absolutely did that. And the real magic was finding gains in these unexpected places. It wasn't just about the bike tech, They looked at recovery, so they used heated overshorts for muscle temperature. My favorite, though, has to be the hand washing.
The hand washing.
Yeah, they hired a surgeon specifically to teach the team the absolute best way to wash their hands to minimize infections, reducing sick days by a fraction of a percent.
Okay, that's detailed. And the one that always sticks with me is painting the inside of the team truck white.
Exactly. Why white? To spot tiny bits of dust easier. Dust that could get into the bike mechanics and maybe, just maybe, degrade performance by a tiny fraction. It seems almost crazy, but they hunted hundreds of these 1% gains.
And you absolutely cannot argue with the results. 5 years later, 2008 Olympics.
Total domination. They took 60% of the available gold medals in cycling.
And the Tour de France, from 0 wins in over a century
to 5 victories in just 6 years, between 2012 and 2017. It's incredible. It shows the power of compounding in the real world.
That's the perfect bridge then, because this illustrates a fundamental point. Your outcomes are just a lagging measure of your habits.
Precisely. Your net worth. It's a lagging measure of your financial habits.
Yeah.
Your physical fitness lags your exercise habits. Your knowledge lags your learning habits. And the math on that 1%, it's startling. Improve by 1% each day for a year, and you don't just get a bit better, you end up nearly 37 times better.
37 times. But, okay, the hard part is sticking with it early on, right? When you're putting in the work but not seeing results yet, that valley of disappointment.
That's the real test. Patience is key. There's this great quote from Jacob Riis about a stone cutter. He hammers away at this rock maybe 100 times, nothing happens. No crack, nothing.
Right.
But then, on the 101st blow, the rock splits right in two. And Riis says, it wasn't that last blow that did it. It was all the blows that came before. You have to trust that process.
Trust the process. Okay. And to build that trust, we need to understand the different layers of change. The sources talk about 3: outcomes, processes, and identity.
Yeah, outcomes are the results you want. Losing weight, publishing a book, whatever. Processes are the systems, the habits you follow, like your workout routine, your writing schedule, and identity. That's about your beliefs. Who you see yourself as.
And most of us, myself included, probably tend to focus on the outcomes first. I want to lose 10 pounds. That's an outcome-based goal.
It's the most common mistake.
Yeah.
Because focusing only on the outcome, it often doesn't stick.
Why is shifting to identity so much more effective?
Because it changes the game internally. When you focus on identity-based habits, you're focused on becoming a certain type of person. The habit isn't a chore anymore, it's just an affirmation of who you are.
Okay, like the example of Brian Clark, the entrepreneur who bit his nails.
Exactly. He tried willpower for years, that's outcome focus, stop biting nails, and it failed. What finally worked, he got a professional manicure for the first time.
And suddenly he wasn't trying not to bite them.
He just took pride in how they looked. His identity shifted. He went from seeing himself as a nail biter to someone who takes care of their hands. The pride, the work willpower couldn't.
pride becomes the protector of the habit. Okay, that makes sense. So once we know the identity we want, how do we build the habits? This brings us to the 4 laws.
Yep, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Sure.
The first law is make it obvious. It's interesting, a lot of the time we think we lack motivation, but really, we just lack clarity.
That's a huge distinction. There was that study in Britain, right, about exercise habits.
A classic one from 2001. They had 3 groups. Group 1 just tracked exercise. Group 2 got motivational talks, really trying to pump them up about the benefits.
And the results were?
Pretty much the same as the control group. Motivation alone didn't move the needle much. Maybe 35–38% exercise weekly.
Okay, so what did the third group do?
They used something called implementation intentions. They had to state exactly when and where they would exercise. They filled out the sentence, during the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day, at time, in place.
Just making a specific plan.
That's it. Clarity. And their success rate, 91%.
91? Just from defining the when and where? Wow.
It makes the intention concrete, obvious. It moves it from a vague desire to a specific slot in your life.
So it's about making the non-conscious conscious. If you don't even notice the cue for a habit, you can't change it.
Exactly. Which is why practices like Japan's railway systems, pointing and calling, are so effective, even if they seem a bit odd.
Explain that one again. They actually point and speak out loud.
They do. When a train operator approaches a signal, they physically point at it and shout, "Signal is green." They point at the speedometer, call out the speed. It uses multiple senses: sight, action, speech, hearing.
And the effect?
It forces conscious awareness onto critical but routine tasks. It reduces errors by up to 85%, making the invisible visible, the mindless mindful.
And a huge part of making things obvious is our environment, especially visual cues. Half the brain's resources go to vision, right?
Vision is dominant. So small changes in what we see can lead to big changes in what we do.
Like putting your medication right next to the tap you use every morning.
Or if you want to practice guitar more, don't leave it in the case in the closet. Put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room. Make the cue unavoidable.
There was that cafeteria study too, Dr. Thorndike's work.
Right. They wanted to increase water consumption. They didn't put up posters or give talks. They simply added water bottles to every single drink station and next to the food stations in the cafeteria.
Just made it more visible and accessible.
Exactly. Sales jumped significantly. They changed the choice architecture of the environment, not the person's motivation. Made the good choice the obvious choice.
Okay, so law 1 is make it obvious. What's law 2?
The second law, make it attractive. We need to actually want to do the habit.
This is where dopamine comes in, right? The motivation molecule.
Yes, but the key insight here is when dopamine spikes. It's not just when you experience pleasure. The biggest surge often comes in anticipation of a reward.
Ah, so it's the wanting more than the having, like seeing the cake before you eat it.
Or for a gambler, the dopamine hits before the bet is placed, just anticipating the potential win. That anticipation drives the action.
So how do we use that for good habits?
We use a technique called temptation bundling. You pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you love listening to a particular podcast, really look forward to it, but you hate folding laundry. You make a rule. You only get to listen to that podcast while you are folding laundry.
Ah, so the pleasure of the podcast gets linked to the chore. The anticipation pulls you through it.
Exactly. It makes the necessary habit more attractive by pairing it with an immediate reward you're craving.
Okay, that makes sense. Obvious, attractive. What's next?
The third law, make it easy. This taps into a fundamental human tendency, the law of least effort.
Meaning we're basically lazy.
Well, maybe efficient is a better word. We're wired to conserve energy. It's a survival instinct. So naturally, we gravitate towards the option that requires the least amount of work. That's not dumb. It's smart energy management.
So instead of fighting that, we should design our habits around it, reduce the friction.
Precisely. Make the good habit the path of least resistance. This involves priming your environment, being proactively lazy.
Proactively lazy? How does that work?
It means doing a little work now to make your future self's desired action much easier. Take Oswald Knuckles, the developer example. When he gets up from the couch, he immediately folds the blanket, arranges the pillows.
Just tidying up.
It looks like it, but it's more. He's resetting the room for the next action. By making the couch tidy, the easiest thing to grab next time might be the book he left on the coffee table instead of digging for the remote. He removes friction for the good habit.
So you prepare the environment to make the next right action almost automatic.
Exactly. Think about laying out your workout clothes the night before. That simple act removes a decision point, a friction point, in the morning.
Like Twyla Tharp, the choreographer, her ritual wasn't the workout itself.
It was hailing the cab, getting dressed, walking outside, telling the driver the gym. Once she did that tiny first step, the commitment was made. The hard part was over. The rest flowed easily. That initial ritual made the larger habit easy.
And we can flip this law too, right, for bad habits.
Absolutely. Invert the third law. Make it difficult. Introduce friction for the habits you want to break.
This is where that Vietnam heroin study comes in, which is fascinating.
It really is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You had soldiers heavily addicted to heroin in Vietnam. High purity, easy access. But when they came back home to the US, the relapse rate was incredibly low, like 5 to 12%. Way lower than typical addiction recovery rates.
Why the difference?
The environment changed radically. Back home, the cues weren't there. Access was difficult, expensive. The stress of the war zone was gone. The friction to get heroin was suddenly enormous.
So it wasn't just about willpower. The environmental friction did most of the work.
It's a powerful lesson. Self-control is often seen as the key, but it's a short-term, easily depleted resource. Optimizing your environment to make bad habits difficult is the long-term secret. Make them invisible or hard to do.
Like using commitment devices, creating barriers for your future self.
Victor Hugo is the classic example. To force himself to finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame on a tight deadline.
He locked away his clothes.
Yep. Gave them to his assistant, kept only a large shawl. He literally couldn't go outside. He created massive friction against doing anything but writing.
Okay, that's extreme, but effective. So we have obvious, attractive, easy. What's the final law?
The fourth law, make it satisfying. This tackles that delay problem we talked about earlier.
The fact that the rewards for good habits are often far off in the future.
Exactly. Our brains evolved in an environment where immediate returns were crucial for survival. We are wired for immediate gratification. So a system of good habits needs to give us some kind of immediate success signal, even if the main outcome is weeks or months away.
How do we create that immediate satisfaction?
The simplest way is tracking, making your progress visible. Think about a habit tracker, just a simple calendar where you put an X on the days you completed your habit, went for a run, wrote 500 words, whatever it is.
Just seeing that chain of X's grow.
That's the satisfaction. Crossing off that task provides immediate visual proof of progress. It's a small win, a little dopamine hit, that reinforces the behavior right away.
It makes the repetition feel rewarding in the moment. The mantra becomes, don't break the chain.
Precisely. That immediate satisfaction bridges the gap until the long-term rewards kick in.
Okay, so that's the full system. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Once you have that system running, though, what's the biggest danger? What makes people fall off track?
Honestly, boredom.
Boredom, not failure.
Failure is part of the process, but boredom is what kills consistency long-term. Think about Steve Martin, the comedian. When he started, his act was maybe a minute or two long. Tiny. Over years, he slowly expanded it. 5 minutes, then 10. He was always operating right on the edge of his abilities. That's the Goldilocks rule.
Not too hard, not too easy, just right.
Exactly. The task needs to be challenging enough to stay engaging, but not so hard that you constantly fail and give up. Martin said he needed just enough victories to keep him motivated and just enough mistakes to keep him working hard.
Finding that sweet spot.
Right. Because the truth is, mastery requires handling the boredom of repetition. You have to fall in love with the process, even the mundane parts. Professionals stick to the schedule even when they don't feel like it. Amateurs let life get in the way. If the habit stops being engaging, even slightly, you start looking for novelty, and that derails progress.
Wow. Fall in love with the boredom. That's a high bar, but it makes sense for achieving excellence. Okay, this has been incredibly practical, a real toolkit for turning those tiny choices into, well, potentially huge results. We've covered shifting your identity, the power of implementation intentions, temptation bundling, priming your environment, making things easy, satisfying, finding that Goldilocks zone.
It really covers the whole life cycle of a habit.
Yeah.
Maybe a final thought to leave people with, something that really captures the underlying tension here, drawn from the sources. The source of all suffering is the desire for a change in state. Think about that. This is also the source of all progress.
That's a powerful paradox, isn't it? The very dissatisfaction that can make us unhappy is also the engine for wanting to improve. That desire for change, that suffering in a sense, is what fuels the ambition to build these better habits in the first place.
The dissatisfaction provides the why. The habits provide the how. You need both.
A fantastic way to frame it. So for everyone listening, maybe the challenge for today is simple. Pick just one small habit, something tiny, and ask yourself, how can I make this 1% more obvious? Or more attractive, or easier, or satisfying? Just apply one law today. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.